Welcome to week 3 of our December core messages. I hope you're well. I hope Christmas week is looking exciting for you. And if you don't love it and you are not a fan of Christmas, then I hope by the end of this and listening to some contribution from people in our community that you will have an encounter with the living God and feel a little bit better about life in general. We have been using for the previous 2 weeks the example and the image of Christmas dinner to help us think and engage with some things in December. We are being really purposeful about that, really deliberate about that. So we have thought about an invitation and preparation. And then this week we're going to think about feeding people. And then next week we will think about clearing up. I hope that this picture is making sense to you. I hope you are engaging with it. I hope you are talking with each other about it and in all the potential for the busyness and all the brilliance that is happening at this time of year, that we are focused and centered on Jesus and looking for ways to encourage each other, connect with each other, share what's going on, where we're being brilliant, the things that are exciting, and looking to bring people with us as we find and follow Jesus. And that kind of is the gist of what I want to share with us briefly before we hear from some more in our community this week. The idea of feeding people. So use this picture, engage with this idea of Christmas dinner, and imagine that you are gathered at the table with those that you have made a conscious effort to be with, those that are near to you and important to you, people that you want to connect with. And as we feed people, in a very real sense this week, as we get to Friday and maybe Boxing Day as well and beyond, I'm confident that you will have occasions and moments where you are feasting with people. And on a side note, if you're not, reach out. We want to make sure that everybody is feasting and connecting and enjoying the season. But somewhere in this week or so, you will have opportunities to eat with people, to feed others, to connect, to share, to feast with those around you. And what does that tell us and what does that teach us as a picture? It shows us many things, and we've talked previously about how a meal is a foretaste of things to come, how it is a picture of eternity with Jesus, to recline at his table and to be with him forever, and the pictures that speaks to us about and that helps us to understand, but really specifically feeding people. What does that help us to think about, and how does that help us this week? There's a quote that I'm going to read for us from Tim Chester. Again, if you have missed week 1, then a really helpful resource for us in this time is going to be a book from Tim Chester, A Meal with Jesus. But in that, Tim Chester says this: "We may not long for bread, but we long for meaning, intimacy, fulfillment, community, purpose, and joy." And in that quote, as we think about Christmas dinner and we think about that picture and how it helps us to think about feeding people, what is happening in that space, what is helping us to bring people together and for people to find and to discover meaning, for community to be created, to see fulfillment, to understand how we serve each other, how we see eye to eye in those moments. There's something, I think, in that picture that speaks volumes to us. We lose the sense of us and them, and we lose the sense of it being service driven and service led. It doesn't become about performing an act or a gesture. It doesn't become an arm's reach or at arm's length kind of deal. There's an intimacy and a shared space in feeding people when we're sat across from each other, and as we extend that into the rest of our existence, those spaces that we have to share and engage and encounter each other, as we see again eye to eye in those spaces, that we lose the sense of separation, of acts of service, of things being around function and limited to those who do and those who don't, those who have and those who are without. Actually, it levels all of us at the table, and there's something happening in that space. And to help us again engage with this, I want to encourage you to read Luke chapter 5 this week, and more specifically verses 27 to 32. Luke chapter 5 verses 27 to 32. And we kind of pick up in that space. Jesus has just healed somebody and he's left that house, and as he has left that space, he sees Levi, or as we perhaps would recognize in Matthew, sitting in his tax collector's booth, and Jesus kind of reaches out and connects with Levi, with Matthew, and they end up sharing space, sharing meal together. And there's some criticism that comes Jesus' way as a consequence of doing that. And in Luke chapter 5 verse 30, people accuse him and say, "Why do you eat and drink with sinners?" And then Jesus replies to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, of a doctor, but those who are sick. And I think when we feed people, we introduce the sick to a doctor. When we feed people, we are creating community. When we feed people, we are meeting need. When we feed people, we are creating meaning. When we feed people, we are establishing purpose. I want to encourage you this week. I hope you're excited for Christmas Day on Friday. I hope you're excited for Boxing Day. I hope you're excited for all of it. And even if you are not, I hope you will seize the opportunity to feed people, not just literally, but in the spaces, the places, the ways and the opportunities that we have to create community, to instill purpose, to find fulfillment as we look to eat with people and introduce them to the creator of the universe, to introduce them to our healer, to introduce them to the King, to introduce them to Emmanuel, God with us, as we celebrate on Friday, as we rejoice, as we feast, as we look to include those who are important to us, as we gather people around us, as we feed people and create those kingdom opportunities. I hope you are excited about that and the things that Jesus will do in our shared spaces as we feed people this week. I hope you're well, and I hope you are looking forward to hearing some more from those in our community for this week.
Okay, you're not going to agree with me on this. It's got to be gravy, because none of the rest of all of the good things on the plate are any good without the gravy. So I'm going gravy.
Pigs in blankets. And gravy and cranberry sauce. But pigs in blankets.
Pigs in blankets. And I like the Yorkshire pudding.
The stuffing. I love stuffing. My mum does 3 types.
The best part of Christmas dinner. I'm going to be that person, and I'm going to say it needs to be served in an entirety. The Christmas dinner is perfect and wonderful with all of the bits. You take away roast potatoes, it's sad. You take away parsnips, it's sad. You take away the turkey or the roast beef, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, we're roast beef people.
Yeah, roast beef. You take away Yorkshire puddings, devastating. But all of them together make a perfect Christmas dinner. You can't, there's no one perfect bit.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
Oh, best part of Christmas dinner. I think for me, okay, so I enjoy cooking. I enjoy cooking food, and seeing people enjoying food that I have prepared is quite a nice feeling to have. So that's for me almost like giving out, but participating and sitting at the table is just conversation and having conversations with my family and whoever else is at the table at the time. I think that's for me that's a really, really good, because we tend to have some fairly deep conversations in my household, and I think that Christmas will bring a different focus, different topic, and looking forward to even what the children have to say during those conversations.
The wine.
I try to read the Bible every night. Sometimes I read the Bible, and sometimes we use it for activities.
Free time. That's definitely a number one. I find that very important in the sense that if I don't create that space and time, I think it's easy, and I know when I haven't done that, I feel it. I can feel it that I'm not connecting with or hearing God enough. So creating that time so I can focus on Him is definitely number one. Number two is just spending some time reflecting on Scripture, reading His Word and spending time reflecting on that. I am not one of these people who just reads the Bible as if I'm reading a storybook or a novel or anything like that. I tend to take time reading Scripture, and I'll go over it and over it again. So I need enough time to focus doing that. So that's another aspect of diet for my devotional sort of time. The other one, I think, is just I need to let it out. So I find myself talking with my wife a lot after going through or reflecting on scripture, just on what I've found or what God was saying to me. So I need an outlet, and that would be then tends to be my wife or even the children. When we're sitting down having dinner, it will come up in conversation of what I've been doing, how I've been spending my time, and so on. So I think those are some of the key elements that are very important for me as I try and focus on God and so on. And also, I think the last one I want to add this in is the stuff we've been doing through our church. The midweek devotions, and also the content that we've been getting from core messages on Sundays. All that, I think, have provided me with so much that I'm finding myself spending so much time going through and actually being challenged as I go through that. So maybe that's what I'll say for now. The list can go on, but those are key for me right now.
Music and prayer and reading my Bible.
I listen to the Bible every day because I find it a lot easier to intake than reading. Then I have some time to ponder it. Hopefully when I go out for a run or a walk, I try to do that in silence, which is very difficult, but I try to do it. And in that time, I also try to have conversation with God, which I've learned recently to do a lot more casually and a lot more friendly than I have done in the past. Because it is a relationship after all, and I wouldn't talk to anybody else like that. So why talk to God any differently? I try to read a psalm a day. I don't always, but that's sort of my aim. I obviously, with the Sunday core messages that come out, I use that as a guide as well, and use that as part of my devotional and my Bible time. And then anything that we pick up with the kids as well. So a combination of those things and are pretty standard, and then anything as an added extra that gets thrown in is always a bonus.
My devotional diet is fairly unstructured, which works for me actually. I don't have to worry too much about motivation, and the way I do it is I'm really interested in some relatively obscure elements of theology. So I listen to podcasts that tackle those sorts of issues, and wait for things to kind of jump out at me in terms of, I haven't read that for a long time, or I haven't engaged with that part of the Bible in that way before, or that's an interesting interpretation that I want to look into, and I let that sort of drive the way that I engage with scripture. And so that's kind of the core for me. Prayer is also a very unstructured thing for me. It's not something that I set aside like specific times for or spaces for most of the time, although I do with Johnny's kind of monthly encouragements do my best. But it's a much more unstructured thing. I feel like I'm fairly good about talking to God when I guess when I really need to. And maybe where that falls down, because that gives me a really nice relationship with God, I think, because it's a really natural one. Where it falls down is maybe knowing when to listen, and that's where I found some of the kind of encouragements of community more helpful in the last few months.
I spend time in prayer with God every day. I make sure that there's a set time that I do that, and I make sure I read my Bible, at least a single chapter each day, and ask God what He wants to speak to me about in that. But amidst the structure of that, I allow flexibility as well to say, God, look, if I want to catch some time with you on the way into work, when I haven't got a child in the car, then I'll do that, and just have prayers throughout the day and just keep that connection.
I hope I try to share God's love with other people around me in how I treat them at work or just everywhere. Everything you do, I think every interaction with people does make a difference, and especially in the year that people have had, a lot of people are very stressed and kind of looking for kind of reassurance or hope or something to put themselves, have that. And I think because we have that in Jesus, it's hopefully easier to be a bit kinder to people and treat them maybe how Jesus would.
I'm hopefully feeding them peace and a sense of calm and not feeding their, arguments. I hope to be a peaceful place for them to come to. I am going to take this question figuratively and I like to aim to be feeding people love and understanding and compassion and the things that Jesus would feed people figuratively. That's sort of my goal, and I definitely don't always get that right, but that is what I aim for.
So like I say, I'm meeting up with some people in the week, and we're using the monthly stuff as our diet, I suppose, for that. So at the minute we've been working on the jigsaw pieces and working through that together to see where we all fit.
Lots of food. If you come to my house, you'll be fed 5,000 people's worth of food.
I have been able to connect with a number of people recently, especially, some of them are on a weekly basis. I'm doing on Friday mornings, I connect with a few guys who do a bit of exercise. And then once we've done that, we get a coffee and a cake. I know we shouldn't be doing cakes after working out, but we then sit down and have some open, honest conversation about what's going on with us as men, but also what's going on with our faith, and then spend some time praying. That has been really, really helpful for me, and I know that the guys have found that beneficial as well. So that's one area, and I know that this spreads throughout the week. I connect with different types of people all the time. So I think that's probably an area that I'll say will probably connect with this question a lot more than anything else.
Something that's particularly important to me at the moment is providing a space where people can engage with doubt and big questions. It's something that not specifically our community necessarily, but the community of believers around the world is sometimes quite poor at. And I think it's one of the things that can put people off communities of believers. So I'm trying to create that with something called Heretics Anonymous. So if you have a look at that, you'll get the full answer to that question.
Hope.
I think it's easier at Christmas to be able to give gifts to people, and if you know their circumstance and situation and you know something that practically can help them, it's easier to give that gift in this season and it be less condescending or maybe rejected during this time. It's something that's definitely more widely accepted during Christmas.
I think during the festive season, people are just really open to talking about things and kind of things that they're struggling with as well. I think people are very open about like, oh, yeah, I can't afford this thing, or they go to food banks, they go to places where they need more help because they're just a bit more aware that they need it, or that maybe there's more around for them at this time of year. So I just like to engage with those things and just make sure I'm really checking in with everyone, even people you don't think need things, because tensions and emotions run high at Christmas. There's family about, there's presents to buy, there's financial pressures. Just really checking in and making sure that everyone is doing okay and kind of just giving them maybe what they need, whether that's just emotional support, paying for their coffee, when we go out, or offering maybe a bit of childcare to people who want to go to the Christmas parties, just trying to really just fulfill those functions for people.
So for me, Christmas is a reminder of Christ coming in our world in a different form, in a human form in our world. And I believe that Christmas is just the beginning of something that usually ends around Easter and the resurrection. And for that is, Christ coming to help to connect with us so we can easily connect with him, understand who he is and what he's trying to, where he's trying to take us as human beings in our sinful nature. And the big part of that is about love. And I think looking at people, whether you're walking on the streets or seeing someone who is in need physically, who right now it's difficult in our society, maybe it's a little bit of a hidden need. It's not so obvious because people are, when they're out there, they don't necessarily go around. We don't have like homeless people who are struggling on our streets. But I think, again, showing love and trying to reach out to people in need comes first by engaging with those people. And I find that the more I engage with those people, the more that I can find out what needs they have and be able to play a part in hopefully meeting that in some way or another. And I think Christmas allows people an opportunity to relax a little bit. They've been running around throughout the year, and now they're getting to a point, even if they're just focusing on the celebration side of things, eating and being merry and stuff like that, still they're in a place where they're willing to have a conversation. And I think that it's easier to reach out to someone through the Christmas conversation, and that in the end can open up an area where there's a need, so I can hopefully play a part in meeting that need in some way or another. So that's how I see Christmas helping me do that.
I think as a church we're doing some nice bits this year to help do that, and I think Christmas is a time for generous giving and joy, and I think it's easier at Christmas to identify need, and people are more willing to accept need, I think, sometimes at Christmas.
So I think giving is easier because there's a really obvious reason to give. It would be my main thought.
It's a good time for helping people who usually wouldn't ask for help.
It gives us the chance to go around to their house and bring food because it's like the time for giving. I would invite them around and decorate the house and get food out ready for them and get presents.
I think it's a time of year where everyone's already thinking about helping other people. Although they are distracted and it's busy, people are generally looking a bit more to people who are maybe lonely or more in need. There's such a rise in this reverse advent calendar idea, and as soon as you hear of any sort of a toy collection so that kids can get extra toys at Christmas, or any sort of charitable thing, people are so there, so people are already programmed to be thinking about meeting practical needs, which is a good thing, and that's kind of what we try to do all year round. So it's sort of welcoming people to the party really at Christmas. Yeah.